all this talk of drones, spyware, and online monitoring, it is as important as ever in this digital world to have control over your sensitive password and information. Guys, it's 2025. Hackers and scammers are only getting smarter. If you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable or compromised online, this year we are sponsored by Aura, who offers services such as password management, financial fraud protection, and identity theft protection to help monitor and safekeep your most personal data. More services are offered as well, though. So I've signed up for the service myself. It's simple, easy to use, and it's free to try for 2 weeks, which is enough time for Aura to do its magic. Do yourself a favor, click the link in our description, visit aura.com/SKM for Saint Key Media, and sign up for Aura. We appreciate you guys and shout out our sponsor.
Let's go.
It's True Social Platform. We have a deal for hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you.
Whether it's Trump who does it, whether it's Biden who does it, the war has to end.
What did Gavin Newsom do to prevent this? He did absolutely nothing. I'm sure you all saw the video of that woman coming up to him.
Am I allowed to use the word that starts with W on your show?
Absolutely.
He's a wanker.
Pete Hegseth faced the Senate yesterday as heads for confirmation as the U.S. Secretary of Defense. He'll lead a department of 3 million people and a budget of $800 billion. Ultimately, he'll be responsible for ensuring the world's most powerful military is ready, trained, and equipped to meet any emergency and fight any war. But listening to some of the questions he faced, you'd be forgiven for thinking he was auditioning to be a spiritual leader.
Swear.
I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you? Senator
And shout out my man Hellbat coming through with the super chat. You know what, man? I'm going back to the celebration. While leaving, and shout out Hellbat. While leaving from work, I heard something about a lawsuit against X or Elon. I forget what it's about, but something that could be interesting to look at. Telling me a lawsuit against X or Elon? No, I don't. Last people I've seen do a lawsuit against them was Venezuela.
As I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be. But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense and all of your weddings to be faithful.
And thanks to Hellbat, we are now at 47 super chats until we open up that call-in line. And we'll go ahead and run into Conspiracy Hour. We appreciate support here at Saint Key Media. Like I said, though, the show runs off y'all support. Let's keep it going and make sure y'all like the video. Double tap that screen.
To your wife, is that correct? I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Great answer.
Well, that was Democrat Senator Tim Kaine, who endorsed Bill Clinton for president and campaigned as Hillary Clinton's running mate. He asked same questions of them if past marital problems.
No, I didn't hear that right. Guys, there's no way I heard that right. This guy right here, this ugly looking guy right here, he was heading up for Bill Clinton. This guy, and he had nothing, and he has all this to talk about him, but bro, you was Bill Clinton's running mate. You shook Hillary's hand while this man was getting his while he was getting his freak on. What are you talking about? If anything, you're worse than HEGSETH.
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be. But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense and all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct? I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Well, that was Democrat Senator Tim Kaine, who endorsed Bill Clinton for president and campaigned as Hillary Clinton's running mate.
Okay, so endorsed Bill Clinton, and ran as Hillary Clinton's running mate. I don't know. Maybe Hillary shared some of them stories of, oh, I can't believe Bill did that to me. Oh, Monica.
Same questions of them. If past marital problems now a barrier to entry for government service, Elon Musk's cost-cutting mission is about to get a lot easier. There may not be many senators left. HEGSETH was also grilled on his past statements that women should not serve in frontline combat roles and was accepted a nomination. He's made clear that women can serve in those roles, provided they meet the same standards as men. That's an inherently common sense position, but not for Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast.
Come on. I'm quoting you from a podcast. I mean, like, yeah, a podcast he was being extremely open on, and that he should be honestly commended on. So it is kind of crazy that this man left himself open and they're taking all the attacks. And I'm gonna be real with you. I think he a real one for it. My man came on a podcast. He could have left for people to find this. He didn't have to put himself out there, but he went and said, he's like, yeah, I cheated on my wife. Yeah, I F some dude's wife in the same hotel. It's like, yeah, be like that. I mean, what can I say when you're honest about it? And then when you got the background he has, I can't be mad at it. And when I'm talking about the background, I mean, yeah, he served our military. And guess what? He also ran an organization to help veterans. I mean, regardless of how the funding went, man, hey, he got the job done.
And on like that. She really didn't let him answer. It was more about the gotcha. Yes, Hegseth has clearly softened his position in order to secure the job. That's indisputable. But that's how this whole politics thing works. Politics and power are not puritanical. It's about getting things done. If you trade 25% of your vision, 75% of your plan, it's normally a pretty good result. There are plenty of question marks about Pete Hegseth's qualifications for this job at a time when the modern world has seldom felt more dangerous. But there wasn't the tone for most of his hearing. At times, both sides seemed bent on grandstanding and using Hegseth to score political points. And I thought he hit the nail on the head when he said this.
Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors. Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very different word.
Yep.
We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapon system, every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying, and every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit.
So is Pete Hegseth the man for the job? Will Senator Marco Rubio make America safe again as Secretary of State? Did Trump just seal the Israel-Hamas ceasefire? He's literally just written on Truth Social that the deal has been agreed. And as Los Angeles braces for more winds and warnings of extreme danger, we will be held accountable for disaster in failed preparation. Joining me to debate all this, the host of the Michael Knowles Show on Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report, Wajahat Ali, the host of Democracy-ish, and Julie Rodzinski, the Democrat strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter. Okay, well, welcome to all of you. A stellar panel, if I may say so, and Happy New Year to you all. Let me start with Dave Rubin. I watched most of Pete Hegseth's stuff yesterday, and all I kept thinking to myself, I've got a lot of military in my family. My brother was a British Army colonel. My sister married a British Army colonel. My grandfather was a decorated commando. My great uncle was a decorated war hero, and so on. So I watched with great interest, thinking one thing. If I was in the US military, would I
like generational patriot
feel good or bad about what I heard from Pete Hegseth? And I concluded I'd be pretty happy that I had a guy there who not only had served his country for a long period with great personal courage himself, but seemed to really understand what is required from a military, and also seemed to pride actual meritocracy over mediocrity or virtue signaling or box ticking or DEI or any of these things. And I thought, yeah, if I'm in the US military, I think I'd probably like this guy being at the top of the pyramid. What did you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I can speak as someone that's on this side of the pond, that I have friends and family in the military, and they're happy about this too. You know, there's two things going on with HEGSETH here, despite the, I would say, hysterical virtue signaling of some of the senators that you just showed there. The things are that he's qualified. There's very little question about his qualification.
Yeah, very little question, especially, and you know what was irritating when they try to bring, oh, well, you've only led this much people. And it was funny how one of the senators there also brought up, like, yo, well, some of the DOJs who were appointed led less people than HEGSETH, and y'all was okay with them. So I don't know where this is. I don't know where it is. Oh, you've only led 50 people. It's coming from when back in the day, y'all was okay with people who've only led 4 or 5. That's what I'm saying. It was kind of funny how they was bringing that up on HEGSETH. But if you look at past DOJ, I mean, you know, past DOD, hey man, I mean, HEGSETH got probably the strongest leadership quality out of all of them. Now, not each and every one, we had some generals up in there, but admittedly, my man had more oversight than some of the senators that was grilling him. Well, most of them, let's be real.
Qualifications. But the other thing that I think is really allowing him to shine right now is his decade-plus time at Fox News, where he is able, as a TV presenter, that's what he's been, and a talk show host, he's able to communicate these ideas clearly. When he went out of his way to talk about equality and not equity, and that we should have meritocracy, and it's qualifications that should matter, these are all of the important things that we need to reintegrate, not only into the military in America, very obviously, instead of lowering our standards and caring about skin color and genitals and sexuality, but we need to reintegrate it across all of our institutions. That's the work for the broader Trump administration. But I think HEGSETH, well, we also know he's going to pass. I mean, Thune, who's the majority leader, has already said it. I mean, it's basically a done deal already. But I think he's going to reform the military very quickly. And I think we're going to get back to having a functioning military. The
way that hearing went, it sounds like my man HEGSETH is a shoo-in, majority Republican too. Remember that, majority Republican. So he really just need to win over his constituents. And it's kind of like, I mean, some Democrats. And I kind of see how the Democrats was laying into him. But I mean, everybody made a great point. Everybody was pretty much saying like, dog, he's like, is this man running for DOD or is he running for, I don't know, Pope or something? Because they're kind of hard lining on his personal life instead of his like professional life.
People can be proud of rather than counting, you know, how many lesbian generals that wear dog collars we have. As important as that is, Michael Knowles.
Why are you pointing at me? Hold on. Wait.
I'm not going to bring that allegation to the fore before we have a Senate inquiry. Let me go to Wajahat. Wajahat, I mean, I've heard the criticisms about Pete Hegseth. I know him a bit from when I've done stuff at Fox. He's always been perfectly good to me and always, I thought, a very good performer on television. But I also thought that under fire yesterday, and some of it got a bit personal and ferocious, he conducted himself calmly. He seemed very well informed. He clearly has some opinions about the military, which others may not share. But I certainly didn't get a feeling of somebody out of his depth.
I mean, trust me, bro. They brought bro's wife and kids into it. One of them even said, I felt we need to do an FBI report. We need to interview your ex-wives. I was like, bro, whoa. I don't know no FBI report that or FBI background that ever went that extensive. I've taken one before. So the fact that man said, yeah, we need to start interviewing your ex-wives, I'm like, bro, what? It's like, bro, is this an FBI investigation? I mean, this is an FBI background report or an FBI investigation? Like, come on now.
And when you actually look at people who've held that job in the past, yes, some have been generals, but they can be pretty intransigent sometimes in their view about how things should be. And some have not been generals and are eminently less qualified than Pete Hegseth. So what was your view?
Look, I know that Republicans actually like affirmative action because they're perfectly fine with mediocre MAGA men and lowering the standards to the point where Pete Hegseth, the Fox News host, can slither under it and be the Secretary of Defense. For people who don't know, the Secretary of Defense overlooks a budget of over $900 billion, 3 million people. He is responsible in particular for defense policymaking. We're talking about law and order, national security. You're going to give it to Pete Hegseth, a man who was in the National Army Guard. His fellow colleague in the Guard looked at his tattoos and actually reported him to be an insider threat because it was so extreme. This is a man who wrote a book called American Crusade. In his book, Pete Hegseth said, I am too extreme for the US military. In his book, Pete Hegseth said, I support these militias, these paramilitary forces. In his book, he calls the enemies liberals extremists. So much for unity. This is a man, not just adultery, but sexual impropriety. He has been alleged of sexual impropriety and sexual assault. If he has nothing to hide, release the woman that he has signed to an NDA and paid off. Let her tell her story. This is a man whose own mother sent one of the most damning emails I have ever heard and read in my life. If your mother sends the email that Pete Hegseth's mother said you have failed in life, accusing him of being a sexual abuser, a man whose own Fox colleagues have...
You know, I be wondering which tattoo, because my man Hegseth kind of tatted. I mean, at least on one side of his body. Are we talking about the chest tattoo, the arm tattoo? Like, you know, please go into details. Like, which tattoo are you talking about, my friend? He has a lot of them. Man.
Said allegedly in the New York Times that they're worried about his alcoholism and alcohol problem, and a man who has economic impropriety allegations. He was released from 2 nonprofits. What are we doing here, Piers? Listen, with Marco Rubio, I disagree with him. You don't see me here complaining. Qualified guy, intelligent guy, Secretary of State, fine. Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, what are we doing? You guys are putting lipsticks on a pig, and you're making America less safe. And the right wing in MAGA is doing this for Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
You're making this country less safe just because you're bending the knee to Donald Trump,
Leo.
and he wants a lapdog.
Ah, you mean this one? This tattoo right here. Boom. Yeah, I figured. But like I said, you know, not a lot of people know enough about this Christian, like, you know, theology and Christian history to honestly comment on this. Because if you realize everything on this man is either Christian or, well, America related. So I don't know if we want to sit there and hardline on a tattoo we don't know too much about.
Who, by the way, I'll agree with Dave on this.
Personally, I don't.
Who's good on TV.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do.
Come
We're
to
going
Michael,
to trade our national security for Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
Release the woman from the NDA. I want to hear from the woman. Secretary of Defense, let's defend women.
All right,
for Pete
you
Hegseth.
made your point.
That's my take.
You made your point. Any negatives while we're at it?
He works
It was a joke. It was a joke, Vajaya. It was a joke.
I'm weak.
You have to take that seriously. Let me bring Michael in here. I mean, look, a whole litany of stuff there, almost all of which was put to Pete Hegseth. I thought he actually batted away all of that stuff. We got a clip actually of him batting away one. Let's take a look.
All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be.
And you know, it's so funny. I made this joke because I was like, you know what? 2 hardlining Americans, 2 like patriots, America first guys, military guys, and Trump may not be in the military, but he does have high respect for the military. Both of them have both been, you know, caught up cheating on their wives. And you know what? I do not give a damn. I don't give a damn, okay? When y'all bring that up, I promise you, I don't give a damn. Please say something else. He cheated on his wife. I don't care. Wanna why? Because there's been many great leaders that done cheated on their wives and we didn't care. Like, come on now.
Which is war fighting. So I am willing to endure these attacks.
Not saying that it's okay. Not saying that you should do it. I'm just saying, well, let's be real. When it comes to in terms of leadership, it doesn't mean you're a bad leader. It doesn't mean you can't run a company, a country. I mean, we've had plenty of CEOs and presidents that's proved it.
Attacks. But what I will do is stand up for the truth and for my reputation. False attacks, anonymous attacks, repeated ad nauseum, printed as nauseum, as facts. We have provided to the committee, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it's funny when people want to make it about race. I'm like, I mean, a black guy and 75 million other Americans that voted for Donald Trump don't care about cheating. I mean, yeah, you might want to want to watch your thinking and watch your mouth when you say stuff like that, G. Because out of 75 million people also said that they don't give a fuck about it either.
Chairman, and I know you're going to share on the record statement after on the record statement from people who have served with me, worked with me at Fox News, Concerned Vets, Vets for Freedom, you name it. From the top of the chain to the bottom, who will say, I treat them with respect, with kindness, with dignity. That's men, that's women, that's black, that's white, that's every background. I have prided myself as a leader of respecting people, being professional.
Michael, I thought that was quite an effective response, really, because a lot of it is just innuendo, hearsay, unsubstantiated allegation. Other stuff has been settled, as Wajahat says. That's not uncommon in America. It's incredibly common. for people to do NDA settlements or whatever with no blame or liability attached. Where do you sit with this? I mean, it looks like HEGSETH is going to get...
about you. That's not common.
Sorry?
That's not common. Not for me. I don't know about you, but that's not common.
I'm not saying for you or me.
There's a police report where I sexually assaulted a woman and I signed her to an NDA.
In America, kind of settlement is not uncommon, is my point. Just generally, in the American system, a lot of things get settled that way without any admission of liability or wrongdoing, which is the case with Pete HEGSETH. Michael, where do you sit with this?
Well, so much of what Wajahat just said is not true, or as you point out, Piers, is completely unsubstantiated, like the allegations that Pete HEGSETH shows up drunk to work. Excuse me one second, Wajahat. I've been on that morning show with Pete a number of times. I've been in studio with him a number of times. The only thing you could accuse Pete of is being too alert and energetic. I found it overwhelming, actually, while I was there, tired, trying to dust the sand out of my eyes. But you suggest that the graduate of Princeton and Harvard, who for decades has been in the U.S. military, served his country honorably, that he's somehow unqualified to work at the Pentagon. The most egregious accusation you make against him, though, is that he's an extremist because he has a tattoo. Could you tell us what the tattoo is?
The tattoos specifically, I did not make the allegation that he's an extremist. It was actually
you
his,
repeated the allegation. So what's the tattoo?
Him as an insider threat.
Yeah, right. So what's the tattoo?
I can tell you. It says
he was his fellow
colleague.
colleague.
Let Wajahat answer, because Wajahat raised the tattoo. Wajahat, it's a fair question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about? Wait. Two things. Wajahat, hang on. Simple question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about?
Please.
I wasn't the one upset about it. I was talking about his fellow colleague. This is exactly what I said. His fellow colleague.
Do you know what it was?
In the U.S. Army, called him out as a potential insider threat.
Well, what is the tattoo?
The tattoos on his chest.
What is the tattoo?
Also, I called him an extremist based upon his own book. Read the book.
What is the tattoo?
His own words.
If you don't know what the tattoo is, just admit it.
Oh my Lord! Listen,
what is it? What the tattoo is?
Wait.
No, I'm genuinely intrigued. Do you know what it is or not,
We got a panelist.
Do you know what it is or not?
She hasn't spoken yet. A woman hasn't spoken yet.
She's going to come.
She's
going to answer the question. You're not answering. Final question to you,
Wajahat.
Nah, bro. You see how he says something? He's like, "All right, what's the tattoo?" And he didn't know, so you have to walk it back. Like, "Oh, well, you got somebody else to? Don't you got somebody else to talk to?" I'm like, "Nah, bro. You said something stupid, like, oh, it was a tattoo. It's all about his tattoo." And I'm like, "Bro, what's the tattoo then? Since you're so offended about this tattoo, since you're bringing it up, do you know what the tattoo is? Do you know what it says? Oh, you don't. You're just repeating what you heard. Okay, without doing no investigation into it. Okay, got it.
But
final chance.
I got my colleague right here.
Be honest, Wajahat. Do you actually know what that tattoo is or not?
Listen, what I do know is I read his book, and in his book, if you read it, called American Crusade, in his book, wait a second.
Be honest. Be honest.
I am. Look.
Ironically, no one's going to crucify you if you don't know the
Donald
answer.
Trump,
but do you know the
putting
answer?
our national security at risk for Pete HEGSETH. I'm telling you everything, and you guys are finding ways to spin. Why are you guys okay with a man who has an NDA with a woman that he allegedly sexually assaulted?
Do you know what the tattoo is that you got so upset about?
It was his colleague. His colleague called him out as an insider threat, not me. His colleague. And I also said, go to his book, read his words.
But just to be clear, Wajahat, you
says, I am too extreme from the U.S.
military. Pete HEGSETH's own words.
Why are you okay with that, Michael? Wajahat, you don't know,
Michael, why are you guys okay with that?
You don't know,
literally in his book, American Crusade, he says he's too extreme for the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh! All right, let's look it up right now.
I'd also love to know the names of some of the Fox colleagues.
Don't look it up. Let's go back to Michael. Michael, hang on, Michael.
No, don't look it up. I mean, like, bro, how are you going to talk about a tattoo and you don't know why it's offensive? I mean, if something tells you, oh, God, this joke's offensive, this guy's offensive, don't listen to him, I'm going to go listen to him to figure out what's so offensive about him. So you heard about this offensive tattoo, and you just believe that, okay, it's offensive because somebody said so. You didn't want to go look at the tattoo yourself. You didn't want to go find out which tattoo is it that's offensive. You don't know, but you're just saying it. You're just repeating it. This is how we see most of y'all liberals. You guys don't have nothing to back it up with, just with the he say, she say BS.
We gave him his chance. He obviously has no idea. Michael, what is the answer?
This falls along a threat as an insider threat.
I'm going back to Michael now.
2021 pegged Pete HEGSETH as a potential insider.
You had 98 chances to answer and you failed the test. Sorry. I'm going to Michael. Don't talk over each other. Michael.
The tattoo in question is called a Jerusalem cross. That this is a medieval Christian symbol, goes back a long time. In fact, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, there was a Jerusalem cross on the floor of the cathedral, and on the program for the funeral, there's one other tattoo that some have suggested could be extremist. It's the phrase Deus Vult, which is a medieval Christian slogan, a long traditional slogan that refers to God's will, and it goes back a long way. These are very traditional, very mainstream Christian symbols that not only are not extreme in any way, but which even the people who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
All right.
My
No,
director
not really.
has
His
that
insider
tattoo.
guardsman did it, which is what I said. And also I said that he called himself too extreme for the U.S. military in his book. That's pathetic.
Okay.
So is Pete Hegseth lying that he's too extreme in his book?
Let me go to Julie. He's been waiting.
He's too extreme for radical leftists.
Let me go to Julie. Let me go to Julie.
I would ask him, like, do you know what page of his book that was in? I mean, like, come on. I start doubling down on this man. All right, so which page in his book that was in, which chapter, and do you know what he was talking about? Or are you just, once again, parroting what you heard without doing any investigation yourself? Okay, you knew he read the book. What page? What was he talking about in that book? Please.
Is he lying?
Be gentlemanly, please. We have a lady who's not spoken. Julie, be waiting very patiently. Your view of this. I'll tell you what, before you answer, I know you said in your Substack about this, under normal circumstances, Pete Hegseth, would be precluded from serving in any leadership role. So explain why you said that.
Well, I will explain in 1 second. Let me go back to something that was said in the very beginning, that he spent more than 10 years at Fox News, and that's what qualifies him to be in this position that he wants to be in. I spent more than 10 years at Fox News. I don't think I'm qualified to run the DOD whatsoever based on my time at Fox News.
I said that was one of the things.
If you, well, I don't think that's even a remote qualification. That's one.
Being able to communicate ideas as the Secretary of Defense and explain policy is actually a very big part of the job.
There are plenty of qualified Republicans out there who can run the DOD, who also are good on television. It does not need to be Pete Hegseth. Secondly, again, you talked about NDAs. I am bound by an NDA at Fox News. If I were not bound by an NDA and if Fox News wanted to release me from that NDA, I could tell you about my time with Pete Hegseth. Unfortunately, that's not possible. But I will say that the reason that there are so many people who anonymously came forward at Fox News is that because they're also bound by confidentiality provisions, which 1/3 of all American workers need to sign on their first day of work. And if they were to go public, they could get sued. The reason this accuser is not heard from is because, according to the New Yorker, she tried desperately to meet with Joni Ernst on the committee, and Joni Ernst turned her down. So the reason that she has not been able to come out publicly is because she has an NDA, and even privately, she could not meet with a senator on this committee who's also a rape survivor to share her story, because that rape survivor did not want to hear from a woman who was going to put her potentially in a position to vote against Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth has written himself while at Princeton, saying that women who are passed out, if you have sex with them while they're unconscious, that's not really rape, right? Now, the American military has a tremendous sexual assault problem. A horrible sexual assault problem. I have spoken to women in the military who say on deployment, it's not a question of if, but a question of when they will be sexually assaulted. You cannot possibly have somebody running our military who has said that women who are unconscious deserve to be raped because it's not really rape. You can just go have your way with them. So I don't know which soldiers you've been talking to who think Pete Hegseth is a great thing for the military. There's not one woman out there who cares about being assaulted on deployment, who thinks that this is the person that needs to be in charge of the United States military. And as for the cross that you talked about, yes, Deus Vult, which is the cross that he has, and the slogan that he has,
Deus Vult is
an old Christian cross. The phrase, however, was uttered by crusaders as they were slaughtering Jews and Muslims during the Second Crusade specifically. So it's not just a random cross. It's not just a random phrase.
That isn't true. The phrase.
It's not true.
It is true.
The phrase was uttered after the Council of Clermont, when Pope Urban II declared the crusade. And it was actually probably Dieu le veut, but it's been rendered in Latin as Deus Vult. It has nothing to do with slaughtering Jews. It has nothing to do with slaughtering Muslims, because the Muslims had invaded Europe, not the other way around.
Yep. Oh my! I don't even know the history of it. Y'all want to judge him for it. Y'all want to say it's radical. You want to say, I don't know, he shouldn't be in office because of this tattoo, but you don't even know what it really means. You don't even know the context behind it or the history. Really, bro. Like, the reach is crazy.
God, are you really saying that the reason the crusade, which was sent to the Holy Land to liberate the Holy Land, from whom? From Jews and Muslims.
The crusade began because the Eastern. I'll tell you why the crusade began because the Eastern Emperor asked for help from the Western Pope because the Seljuk Turks were slaughtering Christians in the Holy Land because those lands were Christian before the Muslims invaded in the 7th century. So that's why.
No.
Yeah,
Those
good
crusades.
to know Michael's pro-crusade. You'll get along really well with Pete Hegseth.
Those lands became Christian after the First Crusade. Okay. So let's be very clear.
The lands were Christian in the first and second centuries, and then the Muslims. Islam didn't exist before the 7th century. What are you talking about?
Okay, I could listen. I can go all day if you want to talk about the Crusades, but the point is, I can also show you literature. Where people. But what that has to do with Pete Hegseth is it's not that he has a random cross that talks about his faith in Jesus Christ. He used a very specific terminology. But putting all of that
was
aside,
first uttered to defend persecuted Christians in the Middle East, just like they're being persecuted today.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about
that's who you want as the Secretary of Defense. Wonderful.
Someone who defends the persecuted.
Julie,
talk about the Crusades.
Julie, finish your point, and I'll go to Michael to Dave.
My point is that I cannot even believe that something the Vatican apologized for is something that you're defending, which is the slaughter of Jews and Muslims during the Crusades.
What did the Vatican
excuse me, the Vatican said the Crusade. Oh my Jesus! You know what? Why don't you give me a call after this, and I will walk you through exactly.
All right, let's try and bring things back. All right, let me. All right,
the treatment of Muslims in Crusades. But if you want to talk about,
we'll do a separate Crusades debate another time. Let me bring Dave Rubin in. Dave, the issue of DEI came up quite a lot in Pete Hegseth's day yesterday. And there's certainly been a growing sense of DEI invading almost every aspect of American life, society, culture, and so on, including the military. I thought he landed some pretty effective points on that as well. And coming at a time when you see people like Mark Zuckerberg, who were leading the kind of charge of DEI and liberal woke policy, now doing these screeching U-turns, recognizing that actually it wasn't right, it wasn't fair, it wasn't equitable. It effectively has collectively encouraged mediocrity over meritocracy and so on. And I thought he was effective on that, Pete Hegseth.
Oh, I thought he was quite effective because he is a TV presenter and knows how to communicate ideas effectively. He has been well-versed in interviewing people and discussing this and talking to people inside the military and inside of all of our institutions and corporations that have been wrecked and ransacked by DEI. The idea of America is based on individual rights. We do not care about your sexuality or your gender or your skin color or any of those other immutable traits. What we care about is, especially in the military, which we all, regardless, I think, of political allegiance, would like to be effective and be able to protect Americans and American interests. We want people who are competent, who are physically fit and mentally fit to do these jobs. We can all, I mean, there's a million examples I can give you here, Piers, but we only need look at what's going on with the California fires right now and the amount of time that the fire department and the administration and Gavin Newsom and the mayor and LA and California as a whole spent on diversity in the fire department rather than figuring out ways to go about combating fire properly and preventing these things. And that's the exact same thing that the military is going through. It's, by the way, exactly what
and that is a fact. I mean, we seen the video where that trans firefighter was like, oh, I hear the jokes. Well, you can't carry my husband out of a fire. And she's hitting, well, if I seen your husband, if your husband in a fire, he's in the wrong place. If I need to carry your husband, he's in the wrong place. I'm like, bro, like, really? Is that what we're doing? Like, that's the best y'all could do out there?
Really, nigga?
And then y'all wonder why we say this DEI is wrong. Y'all wonder why we say it's like, bro, it makes people disrespect the position that they're in. If you guys don't hire the people like you respect this position, like you respect the role, then trust me, they're not going to respect it either. And if you hire unqualified people or people who are going to sit there and disrespect what a firefighter stands for, then, I mean, you get what you get.
Mark Zuckerberg was going through at Facebook, where he was dealing with an insurrection of his own employees who were woke and trying to silence everybody and the rest of it. So all of these things are deeply connected. And I would say, if we're going to save America, which I think we're 5 days away from turning around a lot of this nonsense, these hearings are a great example of seeing how the ideas of equity are actually completely antithetical to everything that this country was founded upon.
Yeah, Bajai, I actually want to segue into something else, which is the breaking news as we started this. Donald Trump has gone on his Truth Social platform. We have a deal for hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you. The BBC also reporting a deal between Israel and Hamas has been agreed. It's a complex deal. It involves the release of 30-odd hostages over a period of 6-7 weeks, and many.
And we got 200 plus y'all in here, man. Do me a favor and double tap that screen and like the video. And guys, we are 47 super chats away from opening the call in line and starting off Conspiracy Hour. Help us reach our goal. Appreciate the support. Let's go.
More Palestinians being released from jail and various other security guarantees and ceasefires and so on. All multi-layered, complex. Has to be seen whether A, this is official, which it looks like it may be in the next day or two. And secondly, if it's workable and if it actually gets carried out. But what is your gut reaction to the sort of overall deal that is apparently in play here?
You know, I've been on your show for the past 15 months, Pierce, and you and I have talked about what's been happening. I think initially, October, you know, you and I agreed that what Hamas did was a terrorism attack. It was atrocious. Israel had a right to respond. But you and I have also seen the devastation of the past 15 months. The Lancet just came out with this is peer-reviewed a study that said actually the casualties might be 40% more, Pierce. So right now we know that 45,000 Palestinians have been killed. That could be up to 65,000, 70,000. We know Israel has bombed churches. I know Michael cares a lot about churches right now, but I'm curious to see if he's okay with Israel bombing churches, mosques. It has killed UN workers. It has killed journalists. It has not allowed journalists inside to look at the damage. It has actually killed refugees. It has bombed refugee camps. It has bombed UN workers. More children have been killed in the past 2 years in Gaza than all the war zones combined in the past 2 years, right? Right now, we know that the majority of the people that have been killed have been women, children, and the elderly, civilians. So in this particular case, we've heard this before in the summer, right? There was and
shout out to Trump, there has been a ceasefire, and they're about to come up, and they're about to come to the table with negotiations. So, hey, one of Trump's promises ended the Hamas conflict before he even got in office. That man told Hamas, look, you don't even want to know what I'm going to do. Just get it done. And they was like, all right, yep, cool. Because the last president didn't even give us a warning. So, you know, I'm glad Hamas took that warning to heart.
Deal.
Shout out Trump once again, following on one of his promises. Shout out.
It's the best deal. Ceasefire, hostages. There are about 100 Israeli hostages who are still captured by Hamas. I talked to a father of an Israeli hostage, Yehuda Cohen, who blames Netanyahu for the current situation. He says that Netanyahu's to blame for being belligerent, for advancing this war, for rejecting the ceasefire deal when it was in place, right, in the summer. It was President Biden. Remember that, Pierce? I was on your show. President Biden came out and said, hey, this is...
And you know, it's so crazy because I actually agree with this guy. Now, you guys mainly know me for my conservative takes, but this is the one thing I honestly disagree with most conservatives on is the pro-Israel stance. I don't get it. And then it's like y'all want me to look at it from a religious supremacy point. It's like I could give you the argument. It's like, yo, if I look at this through a Muslim lens, Hamas is right. If I look at this through a Jewish Christian lens, Israel's right. And I'm not that religious of a guy. So I just take it all away and I just use my principles, morals, and ethics. And I'm going like, okay. So Israel was, okay, so Rothschilds by Palestine and 1800s. Israel starts up in 1948, but everybody treats it as if it was just been there, as if Palestine wasn't already a country in the Ottoman Empire. I mean, and then there's people who literally say that, oh, Palestine was never a country. Show me its prime minister. I'm like, y'all, you got to destabilize the country so much in the past 50 to 60 years that, yeah, that's not possible for them. So when people make an argument like that, it kind of shows that, well, you guys don't honestly pay attention to the situation. You haven't. I mean, you got to go from 1948 all the way up to October 7th. You can't just start off on October 7th, 2023. It don't work like that. You got to understand why these people did that. And then you'll kind of, I'm gonna be real with you, you actually look into the history and you see what the atrocities that Israel's committed and the atrocities that the Palestinians committed, and you'll kind of see where things are coming from here, and you'll kind of see things at a more of equal ground. When I look at it, I kind of do see Israel's more in the wrong, and not for their response, but for their over response.
It's Israel's deal. Let's do it. And they keep slow walking it because they have an expansionist view. They want everything from the river to the sea. I hope this time, Piers, and I said this before on your show, whether it's Trump who does it, whether it's Biden who does it, the war has to end. I mean, ceasefire deal.
But here's the thing, though. If Palestinian wasn't a country or a nation, then why are there Palestinians? See? That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's almost like I said, you have such a Jewish perspective of it, or a Christian Judeo perspective of it, that you're completely disregarding a whole group of people. I mean... Let's keep it a buck. If we take it on the Muslim perspective of this, they deserve to do this because you're encroaching on their land. I mean, like I said, we could look at this from the Muslim or the Christian perspective, and you're going to have a biased view of it. That's why, you know, the only way I see to look at it is to not honestly take my religious beliefs into it. I just go for what's right and wrong. And let's be real, kind of sounds like Israel was in the wrong since day one.
For the hostages, bring the hostages home. Do a ceasefire deal, end this bombing, end this pain, end this suffering. A genocide, according to Amnesty International, a genocide, according to Human Rights Watch, a genocide, according to Israeli scholars of genocide who've been saying it for a while. This particular situation where both Hamas leaders and Netanyahu are war criminals, according to the ICC, end this once and for all. If it happens, then maybe, just maybe.
Some of y'all got to understand. Like I said, you guys can't overly judge these people, like, you know, the Palestinians, without understanding their religion, without understanding their beliefs. Oh, you get the you get the other side's belief. You understand what the Jews believe. You understand the Christian Judeo belief, but do you understand their beliefs and why they're doing what they're doing? And can you respect their belief just like you respect the Jews' beliefs, even though you're not Jew? Like some of y'all respect the Christian belief that, oh, that's the homeland, that's where everything went down for them, but you're not Christian. So can you have the same heart, have the same understanding, do the same research into the other side? I'm just saying, open your mind up a bit.
Maybe there could be some peace. You need rebuilding humanitarian aid in Gaza. You need the Gazans who've been displaced to come back to the north. You need the hostages to be released. So if it can happen, Piers, I don't care if it's Trump who does it. I don't care if it's in the last week of Biden. Has to be done.
Okay. I mean, Michael, it seems to me that all the heavy lifting has been done in the last few days by Trump and his Middle East envoy, and that's really speeded things up. Also, I think Trump's saying, if this isn't resolved by my inauguration, there's going to be hell. And I suspect Hamas have taken him at his word. We never quite got explained what that hell would intake, but they clearly, I think, have been racing to try and do a deal that they were maybe procrastinating over. Your response to Wajahat, what do you feel about this deal?
Like, and hey, man, I hear your point, but there's people who've read the Bible and completely disagree with it. There's people who read the Quran completely disagree with it. That's why I take a religious lens off of it, because it's honestly is not an accurate way to look at it. I'll just be honest. You're looking at it very biasedly. If you want to look at it logically, then you have to take the religious bias out of it.
Deal.
Well, I think every person of goodwill agrees with Wajahat on the minor point.
Remember, you're going off of faith, not a fact, but a faith.
Or on the narrow point, rather, that we want to see an end to the war, probably not with some of his claims about the war, but we want to see an end to the war. That includes Jews, that includes Muslims, that includes Christians. As Wajahat mentioned, ancient churches that have existed in the Holy Land long before Islam ever existed, have been...
We lost Michael. We'll bring in Dave. Let's bring in Dave as his running mate. Dave, we'll bring you in here because we lost Michael Knowles there.
God probably
Michael
intervened
is a bit more
in
of
that
an
one.
expert on the Crusades, but I think I can handle the rest of it. Look, everyone wants an end to the war, and the war could have been over on October 8th. All they had to do was release all of the hostages, and no one...
I mean, you could have said the same thing to Israel. Israel has also held a Palestine. That's what I'm saying. Nobody listens to the other side. Everybody just thinks that Hamas is doing all the evil when they're not. Or if, let's be real, Israel's matching their energy on it. I mean, Israel has hella Palestine prisoners. Actually, they've had hella Palestine prisoners before October 7th. Y'all don't know about that. y'all really need to look deeper into this, because I respect this man, Loki. I like his opinions, but when it comes to this pro-Israel stance, it's like, dog, you're speaking from one side completely. You don't understand the whole story. He hasn't looked into the entire thing. He's only read one side.
Would have been support.
Because you know it's crazy. Why don't y'all go ask the Muslims what they think? Why don't you go look up some interviews from Palestinians or Hamas? Or I mean, they're out there. Why don't you actually go look this stuff up?
Supporting any sort of military act.
I'm not saying it's going to convince you. Like, I'm not all the way convinced that Hamas is, none of them are in the right, in my opinion. None of them are in the right, but I don't like how in America we just hard line on one side and then completely disregard everything the other side tries to stand for or what they hold values. We just don't care for some reason. I'm just like, well, don't we need to care about those? You know, what they care about and their values in order to have peace with these people? Or we can do what Israel's doing and just, you know, ethnically cleanse them. Then we don't got to care. We don't got to give a damn about what they care about, their values or anything.
Action, right? That's obvious and real, and we all know it. Hamas has intentionally placed civilians in the way. We all know that as well. There is no genocide. I would love to hear any panelists call for Egypt to open up the border and let all the Gazans in, but no Arab country, no Muslim country wants any of the Palestinians. There never was a Palestinian state, and if there was, tell me who the prime minister was. This is just an endless assault on Israel. There's not going to be peace in any real way. There's no such thing as the two-state solution. There never were two states. Palestine.
Hold on, who's the leader of Hamas? Wasn't that their leader? Like, who's the leader of Hamas? Wouldn't that be their prime minister, their president, their leader? So what was Hamas then? Like, wasn't that the leading governance at the time in Palestine? So they did have a form of government. They did have a hierarchy of leadership. So when y'all say that, it's a very, like, it's ignorance. It's pure ignorance at a certain point. It's like, yo, then what was Hamas? Oh, they don't have a prime minister or a president. I mean, maybe y'all didn't call them that, but maybe the Palestinians can be considered the leader of Hamas, their prime minister or president. Y'all ever thought about that?
And used to be the place that the Jews lived.
You know, the one that they elected.
A lot of Jews just celebrated Hanukkah. You know where Hanukkah took place? The Judean Hills, which we now unfortunately call the West Bank, but that's because the Jews lived there. So this is largely, we can get into the, okay, they're going to, give away 30 hostages, or they're going to get one hostage back for 30 Palestinians who have blood on their hands or anything else. That tells you right there who actually values life here. So it'll be nice to get back some people, and hopefully Americans. As an American, I do hope that the 5 or 6 Americans who have been held